Dear Earthmates, we are visiting Andrej Nikolaidis in Montenegro. Thank you, dear Andrej, for hosting.
Thank you, Tarek.
You're a highly respected writer and an intellectual. My first question, usually with a colleague, is how did your love for literature begin?
First of all, before I even start to try to answer your question, please excuse me for my broken English, because I rarely have an opportunity to speak it. I used to travel a lot and therefore speak with other people, but in the last few years I'm in some kind of, it's fair to say, isolation here in Ulcinj in Montenegro, in this garden. So if it's bad, my English, please forgive me.
I think
anyway,
it's very good. It's very good.
I'll do my best anyway. So I guess my father was a key, because my father Johan is also a writer, and above that he's a reader. He's a really good reader, and he's the first reader of all of my books. When I finish my novel, he's the first guy I'm asking him to read it and to be cruel, to be really cruel with me. So I grew up in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in a small apartment with a really large collection of books. And the first sense of great loss I had when my family had to leave Sarajevo at the beginning of Bosnian War, and we have to leave our library and in our apartment. So that was later I realized how great loss it is when I was forced to build my library from the scratch, to try to remember all the titles and try to buy them again. So I never really succeeded in that. But father was really fond of literature, and he was not only reading and writing, but also speaking about literature a lot. He's a really devoted reader, and he even nowadays, when he reads something that really excites him, he comes to my mother and me and read those paragraphs to us, wanting the discussion about them. So from early years, I can say I was surrounded with literature. Of course, that doesn't mean a thing. I could become a shoemaker or chef or whatever, but for some reason I shared a passion for literature with my father. So I started to write quite early, anyway, too early, and I wrote the first novel when I was 17. It was really bad, and my father was only person I show it to. I hide that novel. Actually, he's keeping it. I don't want to see it because I feel such a shame about that text, because it's.
But you were only 17.
It's really clumsy. It's really clumsy. I don't want to see it ever again. But I published a first book when I was 20 in 1994. That was during the wartime. It was a collection of short stories, and it was also really bad. And I can say that for my next three books. But during the time, during the process, I learned a few things about writing, and more important, about thinking about writing. So it's fair to say that my first proper book, or in that particular case, it was a novel, was Mimesis, and I wrote it when I was 29 in 2003, and it was kind of commercial success in former Yugoslavia, because people really liked it, and it helped me to build so-called career in the world of literature.
Wonderful. And how about Yugoslavia and post-Yugoslavia? What do those changes mean to you? How did you experience them?
There is a term, post-Yugoslav literature, and literally critic Boris Posnikov, a guy from Zagreb, came with that term. And I'm really fond of it, because I think we have, in former Yugoslavia, we speak, think, and write in one language, which has four names: Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, and Montenegrin. And it's fair to name it like that, but it's not fair to insist that it's not the same language. It obviously is. So because of that fact, Yugoslav literature never actually died. Only because of the wars, it transformed itself into post-Yugoslav literature. So, which is a really good thing, because you want to function in larger markets. Yugoslavia, or post-Yugoslavia, is obviously a larger market than Montenegro itself. So it is also matter of it's a tougher environment, because it is easy to be the best guy in a village. It's harder to be noticed in a city, to put it that way. So yeah, cultural links remained even in the first days after the Yugoslav wars. And of course that's good. That's the fundament of let's say more enlightenment, more liberal, more open cultures. Because it would be a catastrophe if all those cultures just build walls around themselves, which political elites actually had exactly that idea, but they weren't able to do that because of the language, because the language is the same, because we understand each other. It was impossible for them to build high enough walls, no matter how hard they try, and they really tried hard.
I see. In 1994, at 3:30 a.m., I woke up in Istanbul and wrote a poem in English. Europe is Dying in Bosnia was the title. And I wrote it in English, addressing the West, especially. There was a tragedy and people weren't doing anything. And then in 2011, I read it at Mostar University, and it's on YouTube. In Sarajevo, I was invited to do a creative writing seminar to high school students, and I found three groups of lovers of literature, youngsters, Croatian, Bosnian, and Serbian students. And I began by saying, there are some apples, and they say there should only be apples in the world. Down with bananas and oranges. These are racist apples. There are some apples who say, well, okay, we're apples, but let bananas and oranges be as well. These are democratic-minded apples. And then there are some apples who say, I did not choose to become an apple. I want to become a fruit salad. I said, I want to become a fruit salad. I'm not Chinese enough or whatever is enough. I'm trying to. We do not choose our origin of journey. We can, that was what I said, and I still think so. It's an ideal, of course. It's not possible to become a very good egalitarian fruit salad, but at least the ethical tendency. If it is that, that might help. I just wanted to express this here.
Yeah, of course. I understand. I understand you perfectly because I am a fruit salad. Because politically, I'm a Bosnian, and I became a Montenegrin. But ethnically, I'm a combination of almost every ethnic community living in the Balkans. Obviously, there is a Greek heritage, but also it is important to say that my family, they are Greeks from Albania, so I'm Albanian also, and I'm also partly a Serb, also a Montenegrin. So it would be impossible to me to choose between oranges, bananas, and apples. So thanks to God that there there is such thing as fruit salad.
Yes, indeed, indeed. And the DNA tests are amazing. I had a test last year and I learned a lot. And I recommend it to everybody. Then everybody, I think people will probably be less and less racist and narrowly nationalistic more, you know.
But yeah, but of course, because the important thing is to stop to cherish, to stop to believe in such thing as ethnic community, because there is no such thing as ethnic community. What is important is the ethic community. To be united in ethics. That's what's important. And those who believe in the values I believe, they are really my neighbors, you know. And in former Yugoslavia, we learned it in a hard way, and lots of people haven't learned that lesson because it's easier, you know, it's easier to go that way. A great Croatian writer and thinker, Miroslav Krleža, once wrote that in herd, it's warmer, but it stinks, you know.
I didn't get it, sorry.
In herd,
Yes.
it's warmer, but it
Ah, yes,
stinks.
yes,
So,
yes. Yes, true, true. Wonderful. Yes, yes. And what's the situation like in Montenegro? I know there are some serious problems. There are in Turkey as well. And is there any place that is not in troubled times? But some places are worse, honestly. Turkey is becoming worse and worse. How about Montenegro?
well, that's the story of our life. Trouble every day. In Montenegro, Montenegro is a very small country, but it's in lots of sense, it's very specific, even for Balkans, which is very specific itself. Uh, in Montenegro, we have a communist party in power from basically from 1945 to 2020. Of course, a communist party transformed itself in 1989. And it would be fair to say that even during the Tito's time, Yugoslavia stopped being a communist country during 50s. By 60s, it was no longer a communist country. It would be fair to say that it was some kind of social democratic despoty during 70s and 80s, you know. Obviously, there was no such thing as a rule of law, and obviously no elections because it was only one party, which was, of course, a ruling party. But it was quite different from other countries in Eastern Bloc. Especially, it was different from Albania or Romania, let's say, or even from the Soviet Union, of course. It was more pro-Western. It was more open, and Yugoslav culture from those period really testifies in that sense. It approves. It's kind of a proof for that thesis, to put it that way. But nevertheless, it was a very long rule of one party, and after that, it happens that they lose the elections in 2020. But they lose it from the right-wing coalition, which was propelled by the Serbian Orthodox Church. And what happened was, prior to those elections, some kind of clerical counter-revolution took place in Montenegro, because Serbian Orthodox Church, which is extremely Orthodox and extremely pro-Russian, basically took power via those right-wing parties on those 2020 elections. After that, we have a period of turmoil, and it never really stopped. So at this point, Montenegro is on the crossroad. We are still a NATO member. Rhetorically, the government is aiming towards membership of European Union, but on the other hand, in cultural sense, we became a more right-winged orientated society than we were. So we will see. We will see if shall democracy will prevail. We will see if from this process something good will be crystallized, or we will just step by step glide into a very intolerant, very pro-Russian society. The problem is Montenegro as a society have a potential to go both ways, and it is very important. It would be very helpful if our friends, especially from I'm talking about Western democracies, understand that and help a real democratization of Montenegro.
I see. This anti-secularist counter-revolution has been taking place in Turkey too, you know, and Atatürk emphasized the importance of scientific thinking and arts, whereas during the past 2 decades in Turkey, unfortunately, faith, whatever that is, has taken over. No more scientific thinking or such values, but believe in something, believe, etc. You know, I'm afraid of beliefs. Honestly, I prefer. My ethical stand is to avoid having any beliefs. I prefer to have some basic values, a few principles, and a few goals, and I'm trying to live ethically. You know, I'm an anti-Stalinist. I've always been an anti-Stalinist. Yet I have also been, I've also respected Engels and Marx, and I still think they have important messages and analyses. Not enough, but necessary. To me, Marx and Engels are like Newton in physics. You cannot just disregard Newton. Necessary, but not sufficient. So uh, and uh, so, what is your agenda these days? What kind of work or works do you have in mind? What are you working on?
From 2020, I'm really engaged in writing articles for media because what is happening I see as a existential threat to democracy in Montenegro. Uh, and why I believe so? Because after the reformed communist party, named Democratic Party of Socialists, lose the elections, you know what happened? Uh, the new government was assembled in monastery. Literally, metropolitan head of Serbian Orthodox Church called the politicians in monastery and told them who will be in government and who will be not. So he assembled a new Montenegrin government.
Horrible.
That's the end of that's the end of secular state. You know, you don't get much worse than that, and that's exactly what happened. So I want to see the end of that influence. I want to see a secular Montenegro again, and that's why I'm writing a lot for newspapers. But nevertheless, I managed to write two novels in the meantime. So I'll never stop writing literature, you know, because first of all, that's my true passion. That's the only way I can think. When I think, I think in form of narration, in form of short novel, which is my thing. All of my novels are pretty much short. Because I'm really influenced with Camus, with Voltaire's Candide, and with short novels of Thomas Bernhardt. Those are my major literary influences. So that form of short novel is the way I think. But because I'm visible to people, because people know my name, I feel an obligation to be quite articulate and quite clear about the things I believe in. And one of those things is that Montenegro or any other country, same, I mean, it's quite the same for, I really think that it's the same for every society, every nation, every country should be a really secular state. What happened in 2020 with that, that's not the influence of the Serbian Orthodox Church. That's the rule of the Serbian Orthodox Church. If they form the government, they are basically a ruling party in Montenegro, and I want to see the end of that.
I totally agree with you. The United States, you probably know, has been helping Islamists in Turkey and elsewhere.
Yeah, of course.
As part of their green belt strategy against the Soviet bloc. And they hoped, some friends in the West, some colleagues hoped democratization from Erdogan. It's so, unfortunately, I don't want to use a negative adjective, but I try to explain. And I mean, any religion, especially Islam, being such a totalitarian approach, you cannot provoke that religion and then hope to use it to your advantage. You cannot do that. It's crazy. And if the Islamic culture in Turkey is still possible in terms of breathing, I mean, if breathing is still possible in Turkey, it's thanks to Atatürk, thanks to radical secularism, and even the Ottoman times, they were not so Islamist actually. That's important. So there was Sharia was part of the game, but it was only a part of the game.
Yeah, not the game. Not the game.
No, not at all. And for example, one of the Ottoman sultans, he was also caliph, and he painted beautiful paintings with naked women. I mean, he was the leader of Islamic world, and many Muslims, many people in the world don't know that. So this is different, but now they are strategically uh, placing millions of Islamicist Syrians, especially in Turkey, and they say Turks should leave Turkey, etc. And things are getting really out of hand. It is not against being, it's not being against refugees. No, they are different things. Refugees who need to survive, every country should welcome them. But there is another plan. And that plan is re-Ottomanization. And the USA is provoking it because the USA doesn't want an autonomous Turkey. They want a puppet Turkey. So they say, they chose Erdogan and they say, you'll become the leader of the Middle East, revive the Ottoman Empire, and I'll back you up. I'll support you. And then for the USA, they think it will be easy to manipulate. That has been that. Could you do again? Sorry, this is Siri from my computer. Okay, so I just wanted to add this to the picture. Yes, and whenever I spoke about the importance of secularism, most of my Western friends didn't find it important enough. Our Middle Eastern colleagues,
because they are taking it for granted.
Exactly.
Because they are taking it, but it's pretty much the same with Orthodox Christianity, because there is an ideal in Orthodox Christianity, so-called synchronia, which means synchronicity between the church and the state, and that actually means that there is no border, no line between church and the state. The church is a state, and the state is a church, and there is also the state church, etc. So that's what's happening in Montenegro. And if you, and unfortunately, because of some reasons I don't really understand, the United States of America and Great Britain basically supported that clerical counter-revolution in Montenegro. And I'm speaking in the name of all pro-Western, pro-democratic, liberal people in Montenegro. We were let down by the United States and the United Kingdom above all other countries. But nevertheless, our only option is to believe in European and Western values, even when it seems that the Western countries abandon them. So in some sense, we will believe in those values, even if United States and Western allies abandoned them.
True, and in the United States, things are not fine either. You know, globally, there is this. There are these dangerous tendencies. But this is you and I, people like us. We have ethical stands, and we'll keep doing our best.
No, sure we will, and we will be a pain in the ass for them. That's for sure.
True, and this interview is part of the series I enjoy calling Earth Civilization Dialogues, because I think a new civilization is in progress based on the awareness of the limitations of our planet and the possibilities of synergy. And that's why I enjoy using the word here, Earthmates, and a few basic concepts, because simplicity is important when there is too much chaos, and if the simplicity carries enough dosage of some sort of truth, at least, and towards progress, then it might be useful. What would you recommend or suggest to young Earthmates? You're still young, but younger Earthmates.
Actually, that would be a simple advice. Please try to be, but in a very particular sense, which I will explain, like the old Greeks. Please think as much as it's possible. And while you are thinking, walk, don't drive, don't fly, just try to think and walk as much as it's possible, because it's good for the planet Earth, therefore it's good for all of us. And above all, stop chasing distractions. Read as much as it's possible. So think, walk, read. That's it.
Wonderful. Well, dear Andrej, I'm delighted to have met you, and may this be the beginning of our synergy.
The pleasure and the privilege is mine, as as the Smiths would put it.
And I enjoy ending conversations like this as saying we're together. And by the way, there's also a group called Earth Civilization Network, and most of us are pen members from various cultures and professions, multi-continental, multi-generational, multi-professional. And we meet on the first and third Sunday of each month. We meet at what I call Earthmates Cafe. It's a relaxed atmosphere, and Earthmates Cafe serves free synergy, and we share our thoughts. It's a relaxed atmosphere. People need some relaxed time together.
Yeah, of course.
And you're always invited and welcome.
Thank you very much. Sure, I will join you.
So, because it's really important to know people whom you can trust. You may disagree, but at least you know that that person is not trying to manipulate you. That's the opinion and
yeah, of course,
honest person. So great. And I wish and by the way, as Montenegrins, what do you call your country? Is it in your language Montenegro, or is it another?
Crna Gora, which means Black Mountain. That's in Montenegro.
In Turkish, Karadağ. In Turkish,
it's
Karadağ.
Karadağ. That will say in Turkey, yeah.
And many friends of mine now are have moved to Karadağ, actually. Yes, Sevan Nişanyan is a linguist, and if you haven't met him yet, I'm sure both of you enjoy
I
meeting.
haven't.
He has had to leave Turkey, unfortunately. There are many people abroad, unfortunately. It's good to be wherever you want to be, but being forced is something else, of course. Well, we are together, and despite all, it's good to be smiling. Is part of defense, and
yeah, of course.
Also a nice, fruitful attack. Thank you so much, dear Andrej.
Thank you very much.
We're together. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.